from the road and friend of the channel, Mr. Greg Dickerson. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, Michael. Good to see you.
Nice to see you as well. Thank you so much for doing this. I know you're very, very busy. I wanted to talk to you about topic number one, something that you are my expert for, right? In your past, you were a home builder. You've built both luxury, beachfront, and other items, and you went through the last housing recession. So I wanted to talk about home builders. There is no question that interest rates are up. Buyers are canceling contracts either because they're scared or they can't qualify. And there's a lot of noise that maybe home builders are on the cusp of going bankrupt. I don't see it, but again, I never was a builder. You were. So let's talk about home builders and what you see going on today.
Yeah, so it's a little soon for that right now, I think, but there was a poll that was done of home builder, sentiment last week that I saw, and they polled builders all over the country in different markets, and they all said the exact same thing: contracts canceled, traffic down, no waiting list, nobody coming to open houses and model homes, things like that. They're definitely seeing, and that's what we've been talking about. You're going to see it in the home builders first,
Yes.
And they're the ones that can cut prices and liquidate inventory the fastest. But we're not at a point now where there's absolutely no buyers. I mean, some people are still obviously buying. Builders are still somewhat in profit for the people that are closing. So it's a little early yet. It's not at that scale. It's not systemic. It's going to take a little bit more than just a couple of months worth of down traffic to really significantly put a builder into bankruptcy. And even then, I mean, it can take 6 months to a year for something like that to happen.
Yeah. And really what I see different, and again, you're in it, so my views could be totally off. But when I experienced last time, right, when I was in Fresno and I was buying homes, they had huge tracts of building last time, hundreds on hundreds. And there were builders everywhere. And then again, when that went bust, 50, 60, 7% of them went out of business. What I see going on today is there's a lot less builders, right? There's not hundreds, there's a few, and their tracts are much smaller, which to me means they're managing cash flow in a much different way, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, a lot of them were building, not taking land positions. So 2008-9, builders were buying the land, paying for it, or developing. And, that's where they got caught because they had all this land and no demand, no buyers. Whereas now they're generally doing a takedown schedule. They'll take down the lots as they get, clients, and they're building the houses. And what's interesting is, so there's a difference between going out of business and bankruptcy, right? Those are two different things.
Okay.
So there's a lot more exits for national home builders now than there was back in the day. So, they can reach out to some institutional investors and sell a subdivision worth of houses. So builders can pivot now, and get rid of their inventory to unload it. They can sell at cost, they can sell to investors, they can sell to institutions and liquidate their inventory, and then close the doors. So they can eliminate, and take bankruptcy off the table. Whereas last time they had all this land with debt service, no customers, nobody was buying, and it was huge. So little different environment right now because most of them are so backlogged that they can't, catch up anyways. But I think that's what a lot of builders would do, is they would pivot to the, investor market and eliminate inventory and just kind of change their operation and just build for rent for institutional investors.
Yeah, I think that's another thing I wanted to talk about. I'm glad we went there. Is they have a lot different exits. And again, their builders last time were essentially turning into land banks, right, where they were buying lots, and they were years ahead of time, and they're not doing that now. And you're right, they're also the build for rent community is big. I mean, there was Goldman Sachs just bought, I think it was like 400 homes in Florida of all places, right? So I think there's plenty of money that's still, they like the rental model, but they like newer stuff. So a builder gets into a tight spot, they figure out what cost is, and I think they have a lot more options than just slashing.
Well, there's yeah, and there's a lot of builders that have already shifted that business model to where they have a division that builds for institutional investors. A couple of them out there, and you can Google that. Anybody watching, what we're talking about, and you'll see the companies that are single family rental home companies and who their builders are that they work with.
Yeah, they're out there. They're a lot of them are public too, like Lennar, Pulte, DR Horton, I think, is the biggest one. And again, they created separate entities underneath the DR Horton brand. That's all they're doing. I think I read their last earnings announcement. It was like 3% of production last year. They're expecting it to be 8 to 10% of production this year. That's a
Yeah.
big jump. That's a big jump.
Yeah, it's a whole different ball game, and I know there's a lot of differing opinions on the whole single family home rent model,
Mhm.
and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. And we've had this discussion before, and I think on another episode we're going to talk about it. But not everybody can be or is meant to be a homeowner.
Mhm.
Sometimes renting is better for people at
Yeah.
certain points in times and ages and things like that. And there's obviously a big demand for single family rental houses. There kind of always has been for
Mhm.
people that either don't want to buy or can't buy or whatever the reason.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of communities. I saw something, I can't remember what it was, 60 Minutes or something the other day, where they did a segment on some communities in Florida where homeowners associations are pushing back and you know putting rules in place where you can't rent homes in the
Yeah.
community, that to be owner occupied. So you'll start to see some of that pushback, because people are getting priced out of houses. But it's not just investors, it's just there's just no inventory.
Yeah, I think something I am seeing over the last month or so is the affordable rental home is going the way of the dodo bird, right? We're seeing lots of people pick at it. First and foremost, as you know, we had the eviction moratorium, which really hurt mom and pop landlords. That's now over everywhere except LA County for some crazy reason. So what we're seeing some owners do is that hurt, that's painful. I'm getting out. So they kick the tenant out legally, right? It's not illegal. They give them a notice, 60, 90 days, whatever's legal. Then they clean it up and then they sell it. So we are getting some owner occ sales, but that is an affordable rental that will never come back. Also,
Yeah, and it's interesting. And I think, the worse this problem gets and the more people lobby and organize, what you'll start to see in certain areas of the country is you're going to see rent controls, because, it's all about fair housing. So rental properties are governed by fair housing laws.
mhm,
And you'll probably start to see pushback to where people of a certain income, you
mhm.
cannot charge them more than a certain percentage of their income for rent. And that's tricky, because you're getting into property rights and things like that. But we've already seen rent controls instituted in a lot of cities, and so we'll
California,
just see how that
the
shakes out.
entire state of California, rent control. In California, we had it on our ballot. We turned it down, and then our king, Mr. Newsom, enacted it with his special powers. So he
So
brought
what rent control is it? Limiting what you can charge or limiting how much you can increase?
raise how much you can raise, 5% plus inflation, which
Yeah, I
today
think
is
you'll see something
10%. But
similar to mortgages where they're going to base your rental on a percentage of your income, in
mhm,
order for you to qualify.
yep,
And that in itself will adjust, because landlords, if their tenants don't qualify, they're going to have to change the rates because they won't have any tenants.
no, absolutely, absolutely. The other thing that I think that's going on is, again, is Airbnb. More and more, I am seeing Airbnb take their Airbnb is interesting, right? Because it's you get it, short-term rentals, but all of that. But we're seeing them take 2, 3, 4% of single-family homes off the market for owners, owner occ, and for month-to-month rentals. I'm seeing more and more pushback, like Hawaii. I think it was Oahu, just instituted a 90-day minimum, right? I think there's going to be a lot of areas that identify. Again, I say Airbnb, but it's the entire short-term rental space, VRBO and others. I think people are going to come after that as well.
Yeah, they already are. There's certain areas, my city and county, where they're prohibited. Short-term rentals are prohibited, and it's a number of things. You have, again, homeowners associations and communities that are blocking them out and putting limits on, the length of or standards in place for the length of rentals.
Mhm,
You have cities that they want to tax it. You have the
mhm,
hotel industry that's pushing back against it. So,
mhm.
in the United States, it'll be interesting to see as we come out of the pandemic and people are able to travel abroad again,
Yeah,
how that impacts the market. And I'm already starting to see, some cracks in the short-term rental markets around the country where
me
people are
too.
talking about vacancies and
Me too.
having trouble, getting bookings because of that reason. People are able to get out and travel all over, but the recession could play into that. So we'll see how that goes. I think this will be the big year where a lot of people are going to get out of the country if they can for a summer vacation this year. And it'll
Totally
be
agree.
interesting to see how it stacks up, because it was already softening before the pandemic, and the pandemic, kind of really, put the emphasis on short-term rentals. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how this shakes out.
Yeah. So the last thing about builders I want to go back to, let's just assume, a builder was building what I'll call the move up home, right? Kind of 3,000 square feet, I don't know, 50% above the median. And obviously, I think in a recession, that move up market, especially with 50% of folks having 30-year mortgages below 3.5, is that's going to be the hardest market. I think it's going to get hit. Let's assume a builder says, hey, we're not going to build any more of those. We want to transition to 1,600 square foot homes, kind of the first time home buyer. We want to help Biden build affordable housing, whatever it is. What I wanted to ask you is, how much time would it take for a builder to kind of finish up what they already have in flight and then pivot to smaller homes? Are we talking they could do it overnight? Are we talking 2 quarters? How long would it take a builder whose executives say, stop building that, go build that, before it really hits the street? I don't think I understand how fast that could happen.
Yeah, I mean, you can change it pretty much, overnight midstream, but the question is, what do you change? Because the first time home buyer and the move up buyer are the ones that are getting hit the hardest right now. That's the market that's taking a hit, where you're seeing price reductions, days on market go up because of those are people that are qualifying for mortgages. They're not paying cash mostly. You start getting over $1 million, up to 750 to $1 million and up. A lot of those are still cash buyers, and a few hundred extra dollars a month isn't affecting those buyers a lot like it is the other level. So if a builder is going to pivot, they're not going to pivot to affordable housing because it just doesn't work with building costs, land costs. It just doesn't work. That's why there isn't any. That's your biggest gap in the market out there right now. So they're likely going to pivot to the upper end. Now that's a little bit different of a learning curve because it's a different, set of subcontractors, different, level of finishes. The buyer doesn't really matter. It's the execution of the business plan. You can't just go from building a $200,000 first time affordable house to building a $1 million home. It's two very different products, two very different sets of everything. You got to understand the materials, the finishes, the process, the subs, the quality standards, what that buyer's looking for and expects, what the market, so it's a whole different animal versus going from that to building an affordable house. It's easier to go down, but again, it's the same curve. You got to get different subs, works both ways, but it's much easier to go down because, you're just downgrading everything versus going up. And then you have to learn a whole new business model.
I just love speaking with you because, again, you have experience. You were a home builder. You've been through this before. So, Greg, how can people find you? Because you're helping people every day.
Yeah, GregDickerson.com. And 2008-9, that's what I did. I pivoted from the multi-million-dollar house to the, $100,000 house. I mean, literally. My houses that I pivoted from building in 2009 when the market changed, my kitchens used to cost more than the houses I was building. I'm serious.
Yeah, I know.
I think I was spending, 125,000
on kitchens
to build a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot house. That's what it was costing.
Wow.
Not including the land. That was just the construction cost, and my average house before that construction cost was $750.
Amazing. This is why he's one of my experts, why you talk to him every week. Folks, go look him up, GregDickerson.com. Thanks, buddy.
Yep.